Hello, welcome to this edition of the Halcyon Show, or rather the Halcyon Show update. My name's Lorne Risley and I'm going to be your host for what it's worth. Really, this is just an update video and a very quick video that will serve as this week's podcast effectively, because I have a few minutes between gaming sessions and accumulating gameplay footage that I thought I'd take to have a quick conversation with anyone that's been keeping up with the channel, with anyone that's followed me on Twitter recently or subscribed to the channel recently, which I've seen a few people, so I want to extend my thanks to anybody that's taken the time to watch a single one of my videos, even if it is for the 2 minutes and 43 seconds that my average dictates that it is. I want to say thank you to anyone that's retweeted me or shared me or liked me on Twitter. It's really appreciated, and it's obviously helped. This is what I've been preaching for the last year or so, is that even if you don't like my content, if you share it, there's probably someone that might like it. Even if they don't like it, maybe they'll share it. It's one of the things that content creators like me need in order to grow. So I appreciate anyone that took the time to do that. You have no idea how much it means. Now that we've got the niceties out of the way, what did I want to talk about? Well, I've posted something on Twitter to kind of keep people updated as to what I'm going to be doing for anyone that is following the channel. So I want to say thank you to anyone that has been following the channel. So you've got 4 videos that I'm working on at the moment: Storm, Bad Business, Grid, and there's another one as well that I'm working on, which I keep forgetting how it's Sport, Strackenin, Startican, something along those lines. It's a weird takeoff of what is effectively a mini game for sports and Olympic style games, albeit in an 8-bit style. So you'll be seeing reviews on those as soon as I've managed to complete those games. Bad Business is probably the closest to being completed at the moment. Storm's pretty close as well. The mini game I've only really gotten to grips with recently. The reason being is because the control scheme wasn't immediately apparent to the point where I couldn't start. I thought it was just a bug, so I had to reinstall and install the game a couple of times. It just wasn't all that apparent how the game wanted me to operate it. And Grid, I only got approved a key for that 2 days ago, so I haven't had really a lot of time, maybe 10-15 minutes of game time with that at the moment, albeit it looks like it's going to be a pretty straightforward review. I'd like to get at least a couple of hours with the game, even if it has no end point. I like to get a few hours with it just to see if I can, nip away and try and get to the nitty-gritty of games. But the main reason for this video wasn't necessarily to talk about the channel. It was, again, to go back to some of the things I used to do quite a lot when I first started Halcyon, which is talking about introspective things of how I feel and why I do what I do. This has been prompted by a video that I saw the other day. I forget the creator's now, a gentleman by the name of Max, who posted a video where he said something to the effect of, "I'm not okay." And he detailed the disparity between being a YouTuber and aspiring to be a successful YouTuber, with the realities of life, the burden that it places on you, and ultimately the disparity between his desire to produce a certain level of content to a certain quality, based on certain topics and things that he felt were relevant and important, juxtaposed to people that merely do content for the sake of money, merely do content for the sake of keeping up with the current trends, or seeming relevant, or attempting to stay ahead of the curve by setting even more dangerous precedents for what content is considered fair and reasonable. You come to see it now, a lot of the shock culture on YouTube is, so long as you're loud enough, sooner or later someone's going to notice. And the more people notice you, the more you get picked up. Irrespective of whether or not your content actually has any value, adds anything, is even remotely original. I'm not going to argue for 1 second that my content is original. The premise of my content is inspired to a certain degree by a number of different YouTubers. Angry Joe is probably the biggest influence in terms of the presentation style. Total Biscuit is probably the influence in terms of the amount of research that I tend to do and the amount that I tend to reach out to developers and things of that nature, which isn't strictly necessary. I know a lot of reviewers don't do that. They just kind of get the game and they put a barrier between themselves and the developer. I see that as a bit of a fallacy, because I feel like if this is my hobby and vocation and this is what I aspire to do, but that involves stepping on someone else's dreams and aspirations, and I don't give them any reason why I would do that, or at least try to form a relationship of some description so it can be positive and productive, then a lot of reviewers on YouTube strike me as the kind of people that just want to make a name off the back of somebody else, and I never wanted to do that. Games are just my passion. They're something I love to do, And the fact that I get to play them now and give my opinion and hopefully provide some valid criticism or some constructive criticism or praise for a game or help spread the word about a game, then that's a positive thing, I feel. And it's also worthwhile because I feel like I've always been able to talk about things in an analytical way. For instance, I've been talking for nearly 6 minutes now. A lot of people could have done this update in 30 seconds. What I would like to think though is that I'm able to go into a tremendous amount of detail, I'm able to add insight, I'm able to put myself in different positions and thought processes to give you as many different angles on the same subject as possible, so you don't necessarily have to watch a million videos on the same subject. You can just watch mine. I would encourage you to do so though, because what I will say about my content also is that it is inspired to a certain degree by other creators who do those elements of what inspired me better than I do. Defunct Games is a channel that I pontificate. We're friends outside of YouTube, so there is a personal relationship there, but as a content creator, I don't think there's anyone that I respect more than him. His content is produced in such a professional and eloquent way. He takes a tremendous amount of pride in what he does. He has an exceptional amount of ancillary knowledge on gaming. And he's my idol in terms of the kind of content that I want to produce. My top 5 YouTubers video, for instance, is interesting in retrospect because one of them now I should really retrospectively go back and erase, but I wouldn't because it doesn't take away the truth of the fact that Pro Jared is the name, by the way. His content did inspire me to a certain degree. I can't lie and say it didn't. The game reviews that he produced at the time had a comedic element to him that I've since emulated, whereby I don't just stick to the facts and I don't just stick to information. I do like to inject a bit of my humor. I do like to maybe have a bit of fun and poke a bit of humor or make myself the focal point of a joke. For instance, the Emperor shtick. I mean, some of you may have wondered if you've watched my videos before what that deal was. Basically, the nub of the joke was that I was trying to superimpose my self-importance on YouTube like I know a lot of other YouTubers do by falsely pontificating that I'm the king of YouTube, I'm the emperor of YouTube, I'm the god of YouTube, without any, that's not a position that can be filled. The most popular person on YouTube is subjective, even the numbers are massaged. So the idea that you go purely by those is kind of a silly thing, especially considering that the content that is consumed by the masses tends to be the most derivative and base. So by definition is probably not the best. Most popular is probably the more accurate term. This video though, by Max, I think it's Max Derrant. I'll post a link in the description below. I tweeted it the other day when I followed the guy. So I would encourage you, if you haven't done so, to go and watch that video because it's fascinating. If you don't do YouTube production, and I've talked about this on a few occasions, it's weird. You get an urge, a weird sense of I'm constantly behind when you do content. For instance, I've just done a review. As of the time of this recording, I've done a review on a game called Gory Tale. I completed the game. I wrote it, produced it, edited it, filmed it. I played the game, completed it. I wrote what I needed to do for an outline of a script. I filmed it, I then edited it, I produced it, and I released it in the space of 2 days. And somehow I still feel like I should have done more in that time frame. Like I'm currently, let's say, playing 4 games simultaneously with a view to get 4 videos out potentially next week. Really, I should stretch that out over 2, maybe even 4 weeks, a game a week, because I think that that's the level of consumption that people can manage with my videos. I think a video a week is about as much as people can tolerate. But 2 videos, I feel like I can cover more ground, and in the long term, I feel like that's more beneficial to me. The problem with that, though, is that even 2 doesn't feel like it's enough. I feel like I should get through more. This is juxtaposed with how I perceive my videos to do. I tweeted something else again recently. I said something to the effect of, if you're a YouTube content creator and you can get roughly 30% of your subscribed audience to watch, you're doing okay. The reason for this is because a lot of your subscribers are going to be people that have liked a single video and subscribed to you for, as their way of tipping you, or as their way of saying thank you for the content rather than just liking the video. You're going to get people that support you even if they don't like your content, so they're not going to watch your videos all that much. And then occasionally you'll get people that subscribe and are avid viewers that never miss a video. And then the people in between those, I suppose, where people like some of your content but not all of it, so they'll watch some series of videos that you do but not others. I've experienced this myself on Defunct Games channel, for instance, where his reviews will consistently outperform the videos that I perform on. I suspect due to the fact that his audience is not 100% comfortable with the idea of someone else appearing on the channel that they've not subscribed to originally, and that's fine. That takes time to build that trust and to build that expectation level. And that's why with him, for instance, just so everyone is aware, the reason I keep plugging him is because I have an ongoing understanding with him that if he says, Lorne, I want you to do something on a video or appear in a video, it's always going to be a yes, because I want to support his channel as much as I can by giving him a varied array of content. The other reason is, and why I want to support him, is because I understand what he must go through, which is sometimes when you're making content on YouTube, it can start to burn you out pretty badly, but you don't want to step away from it entirely. Sometimes you just want to switch gears and do something else for a little bit, come back to the thing that you've been doing or that you're popular for, just to give you a bit of time to breathe and feel like the content you're making is just as much for you as it is the audience, because a lot of YouTubers start out that way. The content we make isn't necessarily for you. It's made for us, for your approval, and there is a difference there. If I make something for me, I don't really care whether or not you as a viewer enjoy it or not. I've made it because there's some artistic satisfaction that I've derived from making the video. If I make a video for my audience, my personal opinion on the subject matter is almost irrelevant to the point of whether or not I feel like it's worthy of discussing. The only factor of my opinion is my expertise and experience in being able to tell you about the subject and your investment in hearing it. This is where I also part company from a lot of developers, from a lot of YouTube content creators, because I don't value my opinion all that highly. The only reason I offer my opinion is twofold. Number one, it's a form of self-catharsis for me. I don't get a lot of opportunity to socialize, and I certainly don't get a lot of opportunity to discuss my passions with people because I don't roll in circles that necessarily have those same passions. YouTube and Twitter and things of that nature, and now that I'm getting more and more into Steam and the development side of things in terms of interacting with developers, affords me that outlet. And as a result, I'm getting more and more interested in doing game reviews because it affords me something more than what I didn't have before. It's not quite collaboration, but it is something that I enjoy doing because I get to not only get invested in the product that I'm reviewing, the 4 games that I'm playing right now, I tend to get really deeply invested in. Gory Tale, for instance, is the game that I've just reviewed. And I spoke to the developer on a number of occasions. I investigated the game. I tried to find out as much tertiary information as possible. I completed the game. I tried to test it. I tried to break it. I tried to push it in all different directions. And then I try and give you as much feedback as I possibly can in one video so that by the end of that video, you'll decide whether or not you want to buy it. It's not going to be a puff piece. It's not going to be a big promotional tool. It's not going to be me shitting on the game for 10 minutes. It's one of those things where I just try to present as much information as I can to you, and it's probably too much. But that's where the content is for me, not for necessarily you, the audience. I feel like I've done myself justice if I do that type of video. Now, the top 5s lists tend to gear more towards what I think my audience wants to hear, which is jokes, silly excerpts, popular theories, delving into games that are more in the mainstream. They tend to be a lot shorter. I think the most recent top 5 video I did was 13 minutes. Compare that to Gory Tale, which was 30, 32, 33, maybe even 34 minutes. Those are video lengths that they're going to encourage a different type of audience. All of this meshed together, all of this thought process, by the way, is what goes through a content creator's head almost every day. I have to balance everything. I have to think about what I'm covering, who I'm covering it for, why I'm covering it, why it would be interesting, how I'm going to cover it. Once I've filmed it, how do I put it together? What can I add to make it better? How do I maintain a good relationship with the developer to make sure that I can review their games going forward, but without disingenuously representing the game and defrauding my audience? All of this is a very stressful experience. And the reason why the Max Derrant video resonated with me so much is because of that point made about the content creators that do it just for the money and do it as loudly as possible and as dumbly as possible, juxtaposed with trying to live a life. For context outside of YouTube, where you'll know me from, I work a normal job like anybody else. Recently, due to financial hardship, hardship's probably too strong a word, but put it this way, last month or the month before, I spent maybe 40 quid on food on myself, and I'm a big guy, so it's not cheap to feed this son of a bitch, but yeah, about 40, 45 pounds on food. So you're talking £1.20, £1.30 a day on food. I don't know if you've ever tried to make a meal, 3 meals a day at 30 pence. It's hard. It's not easy. But the reason why is because I've been devoting more of my less of my time on overtime, earning actual financial currency, and more of my time trying to develop my content. YouTube. I've tried to put more time and effort into producing content on a regular basis of a certain quality, of a certain production value, with a certain amount of effort put into it. and it taxes you. It really does. It's not something that I would ever necessarily recommend someone do to my level, or indeed to the level of a lot of other content creators that I would do, because it borders on being a second job. It's not really a hobby anymore when you're spending 8, maybe even 9 hours a day on top of the amount of time that you're working. So let's say conservatively I spend 8.5 hours a day working, an hour to commute, so there's 9.5 hours, and someone's awake for 16 supposedly, and then you get 8 hours sleep. I'll often come in from work at 6:30, 7 o'clock in the evening, and then just, I know it sounds like fun, but I'll play the game as much as I can, making notes, reviewing as much as I can, getting gameplay footage, reviewing things, getting as much source material as I possibly can to put together a review. Then the editing process happens, and the editing process is tricky because not only have I've then got to prep the script. Writing the script can take a couple of days sometimes, and I tend to work from an outline that tries to answer as many questions about a game to be consistent. I like to make sure that every single game is bound by the same parameters to a certain degree. That way you're always going to get certain questions answered in every single one of my reviews. It's hard though, because obviously certain games don't fit within those parameters sometimes, so it's unfair to judge them on the same merits, but I try to keep it as consistent as possible. But nevertheless, it takes about 2 days to film. 2 days to write, maybe 3 or 4, depends on the complexity of the game that I'm playing or whether or not I like it. Sometimes I don't want to rag on a game too much, it's not worth it, but sometimes it is worth ragging on a game because I want to warn people about a particular product. I mean, Putin Run Out is a particular example that I spent at least a couple of days just trying over and over again to give the game a chance, and it just didn't work out for some reason. And then there's games I really like, and I want to talk to you about as much as I can. Gory Tale is one of them. You know, I spent 34 minutes reviewing a game that could have probably been reviewed in 5, maybe less. Again, I imagine other reviewers can do it more succinctly than me, but then again, they will miss out on a lot of the detail that I'll provide you. Once the script is done, I sit down to record, and it can take a couple of records. I will be honest, most people would just kind of record in one big session and then cobble it all together. I don't really like to do that. I like to let the editing process be as smooth and as stress-free as possible. So if I think a particular take is bad, I won't just keep that take and edit around it. I'll redo the entire video. A good example of this is some sports games where the whole video's audio is gone. It wasn't working. So rather than potentially re-record the whole session to then have to re-record it again a third and a fourth and a fifth time, I thought, right, well, how can I use this as a joke? And that's when I just superimposed a voiceover onto a game. And it actually ended up being one of my shortest reviews. I think it was only 5, 6, 7 minutes long. But I wasn't happy with that video because I felt that the recording originally was actually really good and it would have made for a really good video. But then again, it's good because it wasn't a rant in the end. It would have been a rant otherwise. But nevertheless, once a filming is done, which can take anywhere from half an hour to an hour and a half, depending on how well the take goes, then you've got to edit it. That can take, sometimes it can take 8 or 9 hours. Depends on how hard the video is to put together. Sometimes it takes a lot of editing. Sometimes, you know, my points flow one into the other and you don't need to double take, you don't need to move things around. Sometimes I'll say things out of sequence and then I have to move and chop and change them around and it makes it a bit more difficult. But, so on top of all this other stuff, YouTube is very taxing. And the reason I'm bringing this up is simple. Over the last couple of weeks, again, I've taken more of an interest in doing YouTube more seriously, and it's been rewarding to a degree. I can see why, though, a lot of very prominent YouTubers burn out, because even with the adulation that comes along with being a YouTuber, so the thousands of followers, the people tweeting you constantly, the people giving you adulation, the feeling of always being behind, the feeling of always being behind the curve, the feeling of always just one video missed and then suddenly it's all going to fall apart. One bad video and suddenly everyone's going to unsubscribe. Doesn't matter how good my last video is, unless I get something out that's hot, on the nose, on the topic, right now, this second, it should have been out yesterday. It puts a strain on your psyche. And worse still, you have to ignore a lot what goes on in your personal life. Over the last month or so, I've gone through some ups and downs. Someone asked me if I was bipolar once. And I said no, because you have to go through extreme depression that can last for days, weeks, or even months at a time to extreme highs of mania. So I heard one example where someone went online and bought 30 toasters and ended up returning them because they said, look, I bought these because I didn't know what I was doing. I don't have episodes like that, but I can't lie, and people around me would tell me that I do go through a lot of highs and lows, and I'm pretty erratic in my outlook on things. One day I can be perfect and happy and everything's great with the world and everything's amazing and beautiful and perfect. The next, I genuinely worry how I'm going to get out of bed the next day. And I can't explain it. I think it's just the pressure that I put on myself. And I think that pressure isn't unique. I used to think it was. I used to think I was the only person that would feel this way. But the more I see other content creators, and again, that Max Derrant was really the catalyst for this video and why I wanted to talk to the extent that I did and why all of what I've just said is culminating to this point. It's not unique. This pressure the social media age has put on people who otherwise would have been recluses. I've got no doubt in my mind that I would not be the most social person in the world, even without the internet. Just because I tend to prefer my own company, but at the same time it does weigh heavily on you, the fact that there isn't anyone to share moments with, and that gaming offers me that to a certain degree. I'm incredibly thankful for, but the fact is I have to then produce content to mirror that. That puts a strain on that will and want, and that's a complex psychological balance you've got to marry there with the outcome being positive. And if someone doesn't watch the video, if it gets a poor review, if it gets a poor response, it makes all of that feel like a giant waste of time. And so the point of this video was really this. It's a continuation of Max's video to a certain degree, in the sense that my point is this. I get that what YouTubers do, especially when they're not popular, may seem silly, especially when it's a hobby. In effect, because I don't make money off YouTube. I've never seen a single penny from doing what I do. I've never taken a commission. I've never taken a promoted video. Obviously now I get game codes for free. There's no doubt about that. But the thing with that is that it's a quid pro quo situation. I get to review the game, to produce a review, which the game company then gets to use for their promotion. After that, I don't think I've played any one of those games since, with the exception of a few, just because I wanted to get additional material, or there's some aspect of it I wanted to revisit for whatever reason. So it's not like I get any monetary gain from getting these game codes. I ultimately don't dispose of them, but I don't use them after I've done reviewing them. So the only real commodity that one derives from producing content is the reaction and the response. And when that is nothing, negative would even be one thing, but when it's nothing, when it's just an echo in a giant void, it's hard. It really is. Now, this isn't a video pontificating that you should watch every single one of my videos from start to finish. This isn't even a video pontificating that you should give every content creator in the world a chance and watch their content start to finish, because that's just not humanly possible. I don't have the time to watch a lot of the content creators that I push. The content creators that are in the description for this video, for instance, I will watch when I can, but they understand just as I do, we all have our own business to take care of. We all have our own audiences, and we all have a duty and a care to try and maintain a certain level of content frequency that people can understand and they can kind of come to expect. But I will still push them. I will still support them. I will still give them every encouragement. I will still give them every pointer, every leg up that I can, every kudos, every opportunity to grow that I can possibly afford them, as has been given to me by those same creators. And as bleak and as hard as it is to do YouTube sometimes, when, like I say, you don't, on the face of it, don't derive any positive responses, or you don't seem to derive any benefit. The reason I continue to do what I do is because I do, and the reason for that is simple. I try to take the mini victories when I can. The mini victories are these. I've made a few new friends on YouTube, Defunct Games being one of them, GFY being another, Cronenborg being another, Tevye being another. There's going to be a few others that I'm forgetting. Jax is starting to pop up on a lot of my videos. We'll see if we interact outside of the comment section, but not at the moment. You need to come on a podcast, man. I'm telling you, you need to do it. Just Come on, pull your socks up. Those are friendships that are growing and evolving every single video we and I and they produce. It's lovely. But it's tough sometimes. And it's weird how YouTube weighs heavily on you. And I guess the reason I wanted to make this video ultimately is to say to any YouTube content creator that may have watched Max's video and maybe watching this one and maybe feeling a lot of these things, this conflict of this burden, this feeling like constantly against the grind and what can I do and this, that, the other, is this. Because I felt all these things. And there have been so many times where I felt like packing it in, just deleting the channel, or deleting the videos, or doing a sign-off video saying, it's enough, and bye, and blah, blah, blah. In fact, I even did one at one point, I think. It wasn't a goodbye, it was more like, look, I need to take a break for a bit, and I spent half an hour ranting and all the rest of it. It wasn't a good video of mine. But I leave it up for posterity for one reason and one reason only, because you've got to grow and you've got to learn from it. In this case, this video is very simple. Keep going. Keep going. As hard as it is sometimes, when you feel like you're spinning your wheels, those are the moments where you need to take stock of why you got into it in the first place. And the main reason I got into YouTube is very simple. I was trying to escape some depression. I was going through a breakup at the time. There was a lot of uncertainty in my life. Not long after, I'd lose my job. You know, there was a lot that I wasn't certain of. And I remember the day, in fact, I'll let you in on a little something. The day that I recorded the channel thing that you see when you log on to my YouTube page, if you're not a subscriber, the channel video, that's the day I got fired. That video I recorded the same day that I also recorded another video saying what the hell's going on with Lorne, where I talked about going through a little bit of depression. I didn't tell people that that was the day that I got fired. For things that weren't my fault. And I was angry and I was bitter and I was very resentful and I had no idea what was going to come, and YouTube was what I turned to. The mere thrill of making content was what gave me the juice to carry on. It wasn't whether or not anyone would watch it. It wasn't whether or not anyone would approve of it. It wasn't whether or not it was trendy or topical or even interesting to anybody else. It was just a thrill to be able to put something together and put it out into the ether and then let the chips fall where they may. And I think that it's very easy to get wrapped up in the business of YouTube and the business of content creation, the business of social media, the pretense that we have to put up that we're okay. To Max's point, I'm not okay a lot of the time. But sometimes it's self-imposed. Sometimes it's just there because you feel like it's there when it isn't. Other times you're trying to muscle through that you are when you're not. In both cases, you just need to accept it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to accept that sometimes you hate what you love. Sometimes I really do hate doing YouTube because there's certain things about it that drive me absolutely insane. But then there's other times where I'm in the middle of editing a video and you put it together, you finish it, you click that render button, and it's just, I get to relax for a minute or two, because not only do I now have a break because I can't edit while my PC is rendering, I get to think about the next thing and I get to enjoy that really satisfying moment where you go, I'm happy with this. This is good. I think people are going to like it. And I feel like for smaller channels, that's the thing to try and hold on to. Whatever reason that you got into YouTube for, whatever prompted you with no voice, no support, no idea, and no brand or no social media avatar to worry about, what pushed you into wanting to do it in the first place? You need to remember it, you need to hold on to it and embrace it, and you need to really embody that principle as much as you can. And whatever it is, hold on to it. Because the more I try to produce stuff, the harder it gets. But the harder it gets, the more rewards are being reaped. I've gone up subscribers, I've gone up followers and things of that nature. That's growth. That's something I haven't seen in 2 years because I've changed tact and I've refocused my efforts. It's still not yielding massive benefits, but it's something. And it's because I went back to doing what I wanted to do in the first place, which is stuff that made me happy making. I embrace that principle and it makes things easier. Not seamless. I still have hard days, especially recently because of the pressure I put on myself. But it makes it more fun. And I feel healthier as a result. I feel happier as a result. And I want to give that encouragement to anyone that might take the time to watch this video. I'm not okay a lot of the time either. I know you probably aren't either. But you can be. And you will be, I promise you. Just remember to hold on to that original principle that got you in the game in the first place. And keep going. Keep your head up. Favorite statement. Stick your chest out, keep your head up, and handle it. Tupac, Me Against the World, 1993 or 4, I'm not too sure, but damn fine song. Bad Boys soundtrack. Good film. You should watch that. It will cheer you up like it cheers me up. I think this long rambling video has reached its climax. I think we're both satisfied and we should go outside for a cigarette. Thank you very much for watching this video. I appreciate you taking the time. It's not my usual content now that I'm going into game reviews. I appreciate, so thank you very much for affording me however much of your time you managed to afford me. I hope you're checking out some of the other content creators in the description below, as I've alluded to in the middle of this video and as I often reference at the end of my videos. They all deserve your support. They all deserve a like, they all deserve a share, and more importantly, a subscribe and a pat on the back as often as you can possibly muster it. In the meantime though, feel free to follow me on Twitter. Feel free to stay tuned for the 4 reviews that I've got coming up and check out some of the other videos that I've been producing recently. It would mean the world to me if you wouldn't mind doing so. I sincerely hope that you're taking care of yourselves. Don't worry about me. This has been a very cathartic video for me. It's been a bit rambly at times. I feel good now though, so I'm going to crack on. I'm probably going to have a shower. It's pretty hot in here. Maybe something to eat. I'm a little bit hungry. Maybe a coffee. Maybe I'll watch some porn. I said that out loud, didn't I? Oh well, cat's out of the bag now. But yeah, thank you very much for watching. I hope you're taking care of yourselves. I'll see you in the next episode of the Halcyon Show. And I've been Lorne.